or run on in, which is what happened with Law in this episode. It's going to be a lot of me. Mostly me interviewing Alexander Svetsky. Easy to pronounce. He's from Satlantis.io. I actually learned a lot about crypto and Bitcoin. And if it ain't Bitcoin, it's shitcoin. Probably the title of the episode. But it's 25 minutes of a nice conversation. Law rolls in, talks about boobs, and we wrap it up. Hope you enjoy it. All right, Alexander, we can just go ahead and get into it. Law's running late, so we're just going to do the get to know you part here. Go ahead, tell us your name, what you're about, and any sort of links you want us to be directed to.
No worries, man. So name is Alexander Svetsky. I'm funny enough, more people know me for my writing online than they do for my business stuff, but I've been more of an entrepreneur in my life. Made every mistake in the book, as I'm sure every single entrepreneur realizes the older they get, and they realize they were dumber than what they thought at the time. So that's been like the constant learning for me. But these days I'm building a really cool events app. It's kind of like Luma or Eventbrite, but just with like Bitcoin payments and some other features, which are really cool. And if people want to know anything about me or what I'm doing, the app is called Satlantis, so like Atlantis with an S, .io, so they can check that out. And if they look up Svetsky Writes on Twitter, so Svetski Writes, like writing on Twitter, they can find me there. But you know what? I'm not even on fucking social media much anymore these days. I'm sick and tired of all that crap. I get too triggered, and then I go on there and start like saying a bunch of shit, and I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you got to keep it inside, and don't engage. So
yeah, you just said no.
So Satlantis is the ticketing app you're talking about. That's the one that you're working on now.
Yes.
I saw something about a cryptocurrency exchange that you started, and I guess that's how you got going in this business. What's that about? That seems like a big deal to start your own exchange. It's like one thing to make a shitcoin, whatever, but your own exchange, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, man. We were the first Bitcoin only exchange / savings app in the world, actually. We didn't fuck around with any shitcoins. We didn't do any of that stuff. We were just purely I had been involved in a little bit of FinTech stuff earlier, so we figured out a way to link people's bank account to their to the app, and they could just basically set automated rules to accumulate Bitcoin on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? So kind of like dollar cost averaging. So I guess we were classified as an exchange, and yes, you could go from dollars to Bitcoin and back. So there was an exchange functionality, but really, like the app was a savings app. That's kind of how we thought about it, and yeah, man, we were I dealt with the fucking regulators and the banks and the this and the that, and like it was a stressful business. I got out of that at the end of 2021 because I was done with the regulators, done with I was building a compliance business, not a technology company anymore. Like after about 4.5 years, and I was like, fuck this shit. I didn't sign up for this. So I stepped down as CEO, somebody else took over, and then I kind of sold my shares and moved on.
So you were doing that. Was that in Australia you were doing that?
Yep.
So they're just as bad down there as they are up here.
Yeah, and they've got even more. I mean, I would say the capacity for the US to like fuck someone over, for lack of a better term, is better. Like
US.
you guys are the best at that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll find you halfway around the world on a fucking island somewhere, then they'll get you. The Aussies don't have that same sort of strength, but they're kind of like middle managers. You know what I mean? That like that guy is just like right here and just like
right. Yeah, you want me
sniffing in your ear and shit like that,
and then follow the leader.
Exactly. So they're like that. So I was sort of done with the bureaucrats, and figured do something else with my life.
So you talk about writing online. What kind of writing are you talking about? Is it all crypto related?
It was more this sounds cringy, but philosophy or like history and economics. Kind of like I found my own voice, kind of blending all of these like deeper concepts about, hey, you know, the world is fucked up. We're surrounded by idiots, and how can we build a better world? You know, I always looked at Bitcoin as kind of like a important instrument in that,
Yeah,
because
no, I
you have
agree.
this, yeah, it's you have sound money, and you know, the more you fuck around with the money, the more you fuck around with people's time preference, and the time preference is related to behavior. You know, it's like, do you just consume and think about now without thinking about the future, or do you think about the future and value that, and therefore, you know, delay gratification, all that sort of stuff, and actually use your brain? So when you screw around with the money, you distort people's time preference. You make them more present oriented instead of future oriented, and as a result, you kind of create poor behavior, and then that kind of has knock-on effects throughout society. So the idea here is that, you know, with sound money that people can't print and can't fuck around with, you can hopefully nudge people in a better direction and their behavior improves. So I kind of talked about all of that stuff.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you're going just beyond philosophy. Is that psychology and the whole deal? Because I mean, you're going deep with
Yeah.
it, dude. I mean, you're right though. Like a decentralized money system is what's got to happen, in my opinion. Just because this has been a while since we argued about Bitcoin, Law and I. But he's like, I'm not buying it. It's not backed by anything. I'm like, what is that piece of paper in your hand backed by? He thought it was still backed by gold, for one thing. Argued
Really?
about that. Yes. I said it's
He's like,
backed by the U.S. government, okay, which has its own staying power, sure, but like, what does that mean? Like, they literally just print whatever they want. Like, it's whereas Bitcoin, it's infinitely divisible. You
yeah.
can always add a decimal point, So like your value is never really going to go down. It's only going to go up. I've got that right, yeah.
Yes, it's infinite. Yeah, yeah, it's infinitely divisible. But it's the total supply is capped, and you know, a good sort of response to the is it capped? Sorry, is it
Rose.
by energy, right? So, you know, the US government can channel more energy in a military context than any other institution on Earth, which is why they are superior. Um, you know, gold is even backed by energy. It's like, how much energy does it require to extract the gold, to score the gold, to store the gold, to do all the sort of shit necessary there? Bitcoin is also fundamentally backed by energy, but it's far more efficient. The distance between the energy consumption and the guarantee of the money is very short. So with Bitcoin, you are mining, and that mining process translates into the security of the network directly. Whereas the US government or gold, you expend all this energy on all of this other fluff in order to create the guarantee that their promise for the money is going to be accurate, right? So so with the US government, it's more of a promise. With gold, it's more of a process. So Bitcoin will be able to scale in energetic load orders of magnitude greater than the US and everything like that. So ultimately, you know, yes, right now, Bitcoin is still nascent, it is still young, but we're talking about something that is designed to like last for 1,000 years. You know, we're 15 years into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, 50 years from now, Bitcoin's energy expenditure for securing the network will be greater than the US government's military might and all this sort of shit. Like, nobody's going to be able to touch it, right? So what you're doing by taking a bet on Bitcoin today is you're taking a bet on mathematics and cryptography being a better guarantee than the promise of some fucking Federal Reserve retard, you know, promising the interest rates.
I mean, I've never really heard it explained that way. That's cool though. Like in terms of energy, because when people hear Bitcoin, what do they always hear? Oh, Bitcoin farm sucking up all our power. And I know it's not exactly the same thing, but like they're talking about electrical energy, and it's almost like this designed flaw that people want to talk about. That it's like, well, is it really? Because when
Yeah, it's just a feature. It's not a bug.
yeah, exactly. When you put it that way, it's like, oh, well, yeah, they are spending a lot more money on make sure the money is real money. But yeah, that's when you started the exchange, did you keep it to just Bitcoin, or
Yep.
did you it was just Bitcoin straight up? Because
Yep.
you know, even on like Venmo has, you can buy crypto on there, and it's like they'll have a couple, here and there. And I'm just curious, like, what your take on, you know, just the various, because there's thousands of different coins to buy. How do you look at that?
Yeah, it's basically there's two categories of money. There's Bitcoin or there's shitcoin. There's like nothing else. And in shitcoin land, there's everything from every single crypto, including non-crypto stuff like the US dollar, the Aussie dollar, the euro. They're all shitcoins. Everything is a shitcoin because everything is basically a promise by an institution, a group, or an organization. Bitcoin is not a promise by an institution or an organization or something. Bitcoin is a digital constitution. So, you're not expecting some group or some organization to tell you, oh, this is how much money we have. This is the money supply and this is the inflation supply or any of that sort of stuff. No, Bitcoin is like a programmatic, set in stone digital constitution that is in consensus. And you can get out of consensus if you want. So I can go today and I can, Bitcoin is a program. I can run the Bitcoin program on my computer and I can change the rules. I can go, yeah, fuck it. I don't want 21 million Bitcoin. I want 42 million. I can do that. But I knock myself out of the network because I'm no longer in sync with the rules. I'm no longer in sync with the constitution. So now I'm on my own network by myself with any other idiot who chose to jump with me and have 42 million coins instead of 21, right? So Bitcoin is really unique like this. It uses social consensus to ensure that the rules stay the same. And in order to change anything on Bitcoin, you have to convince everybody else to change as well. And this is one of the big insights that Satoshi created was he used the fact that human beings can't fucking agree on anything as the mechanism for security on Bitcoin, which means like try get 10 people to go to to figure out where they're gonna eat for dinner, right?
Yeah,
Never gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So try and there's probably at least 100,000 or 500,000, somewhere in that range, nodes that are basically running the Bitcoin script, running the Bitcoin program, and they're in sync every 10 minutes. Every time a block is done, they're in sync. They catch and they sync. Try getting all of those people to change the fucking rules of anything.
right.
Not going to happen. The cat is out of the bag. So that is Bitcoin's security model. Everything else, every shitcoin, every crypto, every fiat currency, everything, the rules are changed by a small committee of 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, whatever. And they can vote, they can change the rules. That is the difference between Bitcoin and everything else. So when you understand that, you realize that Bitcoin is like the one sort of money that cannot be manipulated or changed or anything, which means everybody ultimately is going to find their way to it. So if you find your way there early, you're just ahead of the game.
When they're making these shit coins, are they doing it off the sort of like infrastructure backbone of Bitcoin, and then, or are they having to do their own thing each time and like write their own script, whatever? Okay.
So there's two ways. You can copy the Bitcoin code and you can create what's called a fork by changing the code. So that's like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, right? Or you can create your own blockchain and then you can issue your own token. That's more like Ethereum, Solana, and all these other shitcoins, right? So the similarity between the Ethereums and the Solanas is that they use a similar sort of technological substrate to Bitcoin, so they call it the blockchain, but it's their own proprietary shit that they launched. So they're closer. In fact, Ethereum is closer to the Federal Reserve. All you've done is replace the bankers with some nerds. So so the nerds just issue their own money, and they're like, oh yeah, trust us, we're not going to change the monetary policy, and they've changed the monetary policy like 20 times already.
I mean, does it ever frustrate you how much of life is a pyramid scheme? How many things are just like a freaking Ponzi scheme, whatever you want to call it? I mean,
Dude, totally. Like everything's become a Ponzi scheme. The problem is though, when the money is a fucking scam, everything becomes a Ponzi scheme.
right. Yeah.
And that's the big problem Bitcoin's trying to solve, right? Is that you fix the money and you get a really nice knock-on effect because everything else starts to demonetize. But because the money is broken, we've monetized everything else. So we treat real estate like a Ponzi scheme because we don't want to store money. So what do? We buy fucking houses as investments, right? We do the same with gold, with stocks, with everything, because anything to get the hell out of the dollar or to get the hell out of the money because the money is devaluing. But if you have money that doesn't devalue over time, then all of this other shit goes away, because then you don't need to speculate. You don't need to invest like a retard. You don't need to fucking flip houses and all this sort of shit. Like you start to have a hurdle rate on investment, which is the natural appreciation of Bitcoin as a savings instrument, because savings is supposed to increase over time. Like the purchasing power of your savings is supposed to go up, not fucking down. But we live in an upside down world. So, everything else is distorted down the track.
Yeah. So have you sort of projected into the future any sort of consequences to like any particular industries or anything? Like, say Bitcoin becomes the new standard, do you see any, I guess, just industries in general? Like, so what would be a huge consequence of that
Yeah,
maybe I wouldn't think of?
good question. Here's one that nobody realizes: energy. The entire fucking energy grid, the energy infrastructure transforms. So let me give you an example. So one of the biggest problems on the energy side of things is load balancing, load management, and distribution. There's always problems with that. Even in the top countries like America and Australia, like energy goes to fucking waste. Especially like there's a lot of stuff going on in Texas now with like methane flaring from gas and everything that they're getting out. You could take Bitcoin and you can put a Bitcoin mine next to a energy grid provider like coal station, methane flaring, and all this sort of stuff. And when you have excess capacity, you can channel that into Bitcoin and you can transform that excess capacity into money so that you can load balance and therefore use those extra credits to better to give more competitive energy pricing, whatever. You can start to transform the entire grid, because now you've merged energy and money, which are the two fundamental layers of a civilization. You can't have a civilization of any kind without an energy grid or a monetary network. So Bitcoin kind of fuses into the energy grid, and it allows you to better distribute energy. You can also seed energy into places where you don't have a current grid. You can go and put a fucking mining plant in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Africa, with solar panels, for example. And then around that miner, you can start to then build a factory where the extra power can go into the factory, and then you can start growing out from there. And you can literally seed energy with money into new places where it didn't exist before, and you can start to interconnect the entire fucking energy infrastructure of the world. And then ultimately, what you end up getting is energy gets priced in what? In Bitcoin, not in fucking dollars. So then you have this beautiful symbiosis. So that is going to transform the entire world.
Whoa. That's crazy to think about. I never even realized that was a possibility. Dude, I mean, our power plants, I guess they're that often, they're just, how much energy are they spending on that? I mean, that's crazy because,
it's happening already. Andrew, and he runs a company called Satoshi Energy, and that's what he does. He partners with the power companies, and he helps them build infrastructure to add load balancing equipment in the form of mining into their thing. I've got another friend. He has a kind of like a sauna spa with like magnesium pools and all this sort of shit. For their heating, they use Bitcoin miners to produce the heat for the thing. So there's all this like interesting stuff.
I mean, that places that are cold in general. I mean, that's it. Like that's so cool. I mean, where's the money going? If let's say the energy, you have the Bitcoin mining operation right next to a power plant, who gets that Bitcoin that is mined?
The power plant. So then they could use it for their top line, for example, so they can add to their top line, or they can use it to decrease the cost on during high peak times, so they can turn off the miner, and then they can use the excess power when it's needed for customers. But instead of slapping them with peak prices, they have a buffer because they previously generated some money out of Bitcoin. So it'll create like more competition in the energy marketplace as well.
So why would any power company have what objections would they have to that? Because I mean, it's literally a license to print money.
Yeah, it is. It's mainly a knowledge thing, man. So Riot Bitcoin, which is one of the big miners out of based out of Texas. They've converted they've put all of their mining centers next to power plants and stuff like that. So all of this stuff is happening. All of this transformation is happening. So, the early objections are, oh, well, we don't know what Bitcoin is. We don't trust it. It's too volatile, blah, 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 all that sort of shit. But, as each domino falls, you kind of get this kind of change in consciousness. Same as like when I was talking about Bitcoin 10 years ago to people, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Now, like it's, that sort of shift is gradual and the objections kind of float away. And then it's like, okay, well, it's not a scam anymore. So what is it? Well, now it's volatile. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. In the next 5 years, that's going to not be an objection anymore. And on we go.
Man. So do you stay up on energy trends because of all of this? Is it something that you pay attention to? Because I never thought of it in these terms, but it seems energy keeps popping up in the conversation. Is it something that you pay attention to? Are you looking for 0 point energy? Are you, trying to figure out what's next there too?
I was down that rabbit hole about 2 years ago. So I used to own a publication called the Bitcoin Times, which was like a premium sort of collectible publication where I invited the best thinkers around the world to do a long form essay, and then I'd compile them all into this beautiful little collectible item. I did that a couple of years ago, and we did actually an energy edition, and I had some writers from all around the world produce a piece for it. And I had one really interesting guy called Gideon Powell, who was his dad was like a wildcatter in Texas, and he's got this company called Choya Energy, which is they're oil and gas company, and they're super into Bitcoin, and everything they build from the oil and gas side comes with the mining infrastructure associated to it and all this sort of stuff. So back then I was super interested. We had an article in there about like what do you call it, the nuclear mini reactors that are modular. And that's another really interesting thing, is these guys that are building small modular reactors, that's what it's called, SMRs, they're combining the container with the nuclear reactor on one side and the Bitcoin mining kit on the other side. So it like comes as a package. So they can drop that into anywhere, and it just generates power, and whatever power is not being used by the community or by the industry or whatever, it just goes into the miners, and it offsets the cost. So like there's this beautiful symbiosis. So I used to be really down that rabbit hole. These days I'm busy building the app and just had a first baby and all that sort of stuff, so not as much anymore. But dude, it's super fucking interesting, man.
I hope that comes to fruition, the conspiracy side of me. If, let's say, there was a bad actor in the government that wanted to destroy Bitcoin, or at least put a hurting on it, how would that go down? And Law has just walked in the building. Right, Oz?
What's up, buddy? Yeah, right.
I was asking how a bad actor could destroy Bitcoin. You're caught up.
Like a bad actor, like
Anybody, like a government entity or something.
Like Nicolas Cage.
I was gonna say
There's not a bad actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Why pick on Tara Reid?
She's not really a good actress. I could.
Look, I don't even know who that is. So I'm just gonna assume she's a bad actress.
You see her boobs in The Big Lebowski, and she was in American Pie.
Man, way to derail this conversation.
This is what I do best.
I just learned so much about Bitcoin,
This
and now you done it, and just boobs.
All right, we're talking crypto.
Boobs are great.
and-
I want to know how you could, in theory, bring down the blockchain.
My Michael.
It's I think what I said earlier, the cat is out of the bag. I think it's kind of too late. The governments have tried multiple times. Outright bans never work. The nature of Bitcoin is that there's no individual or no group of individuals that matter enough to influence, to change anything. It's like, who do you go after? The miners? Well, the miners aren't gonna, like,
Right.
it doesn't matter how much mining power you have. Like, what matters is the collection of nodes. So how do you go after all the nodes when all the node operators are anonymous? And there's an incentive for them to hold on to it. So really, I think the only way for it to to be impacted
You
would
really
be
fucked his brain up, dude.
You got to think of these.
no.
Yeah, I want to make a.
I haven't seen anybody stressed from a question as a guest on
He's
the
not
podcast.
stressing. He's thinking.
I know.
Here's the one way.
Yeah.
I've got it. Here's the one way. If the federal government and the Federal Reserve become so pristine and pure that they stop printing money, they tell us the total supply of money, they stop fucking taxation and theft and all the bullshit shenanigans that they're doing, and they all of a sudden become somehow fucking holy men and make the need for Bitcoin disappear. That's the only fucking way. And
they
kind of like make
essentially
it irrelevant
probably
by
turn
doing it
it
right.
into Bitcoin is probably what they would do.
Pretty much, exactly. Now, in the absence of that, and I would be very willing to bet that that's never going to fucking happen.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing that stops it.
So there's not any sort of money manipulate, like they couldn't go in and buy up a bunch of it, and like because I guess that just kind of reinforces it in the opposite direction. So
Yeah. The thing's like a fucking virus. This is what people don't get. It's like it's a virus, and it's kind of first it's like parasitic because it comes in and it sucks out of the system. Then it becomes symbiotic because as enemies buy Bitcoin, they become sort of sucked into it. Right. So, and then after it becomes symbiotic over 10, 20 years, then it fucking topples the previous system and it becomes the standard. So it's kind of we're in the symbiosis stage. Like the parasite stage is gone. That was like the stage 1. Now it's like it's in the institutions.
yeah,
Coming in, going, let me eat them. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm coming in hot.
yeah, I know.
I apologize for being late. I had a potential client that's like, hey, I got a couple of questions. I was like, let me pull over real quick. Here's my thing. Do we talk about the origins of Bitcoin and the mystique around it and this tall tale that I don't think exists the more I think about it?
What, Satoshi?
Yeah, you could go back in episodes and I was like, I kind of like the lore of it, but the more I've thought about it, and sparingly here and there over the years, the more I don't think it's a real story.
Well, no.
Person.
Well, I mean, what do you mean the story that this guy invented it and nobody can find him?
Yeah, like that and like a mathematical equation of like that no one can figure out, or like I don't know, that decentralized it.
Well, Bitcoin is definitely real, and
no, it's
like,
real.
happened.
Don't get me wrong. I just think it's like the Bible a little bit, like Genesis. If you take Genesis at its word,
well,
it's gonna be
glad Alexander's here. I'm glad he's here to explain what
he was agreeing with me. I was good.
No, it's actually kind of like that. If you fast forward 100, 200 years, it's going to be like a myth. Kind of like, the sort of the Genesis story in the sense. I mean, we call the first block in Bitcoin the Genesis block, right? Because that is where it emerged from.
That's right.
There was so the one thing you said that was incorrect was the sort of equation or something like that.
That's
no
where I was going to jump in here, and
I'm speaking for the guy at the bar that talks about this. Yes, this is how it's presented to me a lot of the times. I know that's not right.
I'll disentangle that for you.
Yeah.
So basically, it wasn't an equation that was solved. It was a problem of coordination that was solved. So there's this concept called the Byzantine generals problem, which is how do you get a bunch of people who to coordinate? So the Byzantine generals to coordinate to attack the castle at the same time. If you have to send messages to each other, but the messenger could send an alternate message. So like the messenger could be a bad egg, right? So how do you get them all?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
A Game of Thrones kind of game theory.
Kind of Game of Thrones. So yeah, picture that. So you got a castle and you've got a bunch of generals. The only way they can take the castle is if they all attack at once. But they can't communicate directly with each other. They have to communicate through some sort of medium, some sort of messenger. And that messenger, if they are an enemy, unknown enemy, they tell one of the people not to attack, and then you all fail, right? So that was always in decentralized systems, that was always a problem. Is like, how do you get people who can't communicate directly, who do not know each other, to agree on something, to come to consensus on a regular basis? That's the problem that Satoshi solved, and the solution to that problem was a mixture of things. It was using cryptography. It was using an incentive mechanism, which is, effectively the Bitcoin currency. It was the time it was launched. It was the fact that it was laughed at in the beginning. So all of these things happened in the real world that came to actually make Bitcoin work. So a lot of it was like luck. A lot of it was timing. A lot of it was, technical infrastructure. A lot of it was all of this stuff. Could it have been done better? Potentially, technically speaking. But what makes Bitcoin special is that you actually can't go back in time and plant the seed again so that the same events happen one after the other. Like there was no way for Satoshi, for example, to predict that Silk Road was going to happen, right? Silk Road was the drug website, if you remember that. Like Silk Road actually
And you
was
could
the
get a
first.
hit on. You could order an assassin if you wanted.
Yeah, whatever you wanted. But the whole
That's what
point
that
of
guy
it
got
was,
went to prison.
it was
for
the
a reason.
first. It was the first real use case for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There was no way to predict that. So that happened, and then that sort of created in the minds of the early adopters that, holy shit, Silk Road was taken down, but Bitcoin wasn't touched. It couldn't be touched. So then it created more trust. More people were willing to mine, more people were willing to buy, more people were willing to build wallet infrastructure, all this sort of shit. So Bitcoin is effectively decentralized through its usage and through the way it's spread into civilization. That's the part you can't replicate. Because that you can't, like, the only way to replicate is to go back in time and do it again. And we don't have fucking time machines yet. So,
Yeah,
like, that's what's
He said that very confidently.
I mean, who knows?
Avengers.
Here's some more law.
Don't get me started.
People think
we started.
Bitcoin was kind
Time
of
heist?
invented in the future and dropped into the past. So that's that's part
Oh
of it.
man, I might need to have you back to talk about just that.
Wait, I missed that. What did he say?
Said that there's some people that think Bitcoin was created in the future and then dropped in the past.
Oh shit! Like an Tenet.
Yep,
sure.
That's a whole
Oh, that's what
fucking
that
rabbit hole.
movie's about.
Oh
I
man,
never figured that out. I was like, what? What's the purpose of this movie?
it's all about Bitcoin.
You know, he does the thing with his
The
hands.
Bitcoin ham symbol.
And then you got Cutie Patootie and a beard at the end there. That's the kick-ass guy, that really handsome dude. Yeah, that's what I said. What's up? You're looking good today.
I don't know.
Hey, I've got a question about Solana. Do you know anything about that?
It's a shit coin. We already talked about
That's
it.
it.
Well, friend of the program, former guest, Vadim Dmitriev.
Nope. Davidoff.
Davidoff, yes, sorry. I'm on fire.
Sorry.
He probably doesn't listen. He's the only person I know that went from St. Petersburg, Russia to St. Petersburg, Florida. He got me on one of these fitness apps early on, and he told me if you do it with your Apple Watch, it'll track your steps, and you get Solana coin or Sol coin or whatever, depending on how much you do. And I go, great. And I forgot to set it up. And he did it, and he got it. This is like early on in the app. And I missed out on about $3,000, I think, according to him. If I took that coin and sat on it for a week and sold it off or whatever. What is there anything kind of like that in incentivized programs? This is a roundabout question. It wasn't really about the coin at all. If you know of other cryptos that are setting up non-financial incentives to gain it, if there's anything like that you know of.
I mean, the question
I
is
just
like,
want real low rent on you.
yeah, I mean, who's paying the incentives and for what reason?
Probably the app, I guess, did. I don't know. I didn't really look
And
into it.
why does it benefit the app? So like whenever you're getting money for free
Adopters.
for like stupid shit like walking around, like you sort of got to ask the questions like, okay, who's benefiting from this? What is the business model? All that sort of stuff.
All the money.
So yeah, so it's like all the shit coins are just like literally spending money to buy users to prove that their network is real so that they can continue the Ponzi scheme, so they can create more coins and dump more tokens on idiots, basically. So like, all of these things are like weird machinations of like modern society, which is all fucked up thanks to money printing, which distorts everything else economically. So, you end up with all of this sort of weird stuff that doesn't make any fucking sense.
We got about a minute left. I hate to cut you off. What was what did you ask him our question we ask everybody?
No.
Good job.
Let's do it.
What advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
13. Oh shit.
And you're saying my
Study-
hot Tua coin is not very good?
No. Study about gold and silver a little bit earlier so that you can buy Bitcoin earlier. That's literally the only fucking advice. That's it. Because yeah, I got onto the gold and silver train a little bit late, kind of 2011, 2012. Had I done that a little bit earlier, I think I would have understood Bitcoin 5 years earlier, and that would have been a bit different. But here we are.
Hey, we're all free market here, brother. I'll appreciate you coming on. Sorry I was late, egregiously late.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually make you listen to this one.
I'm gonna have.
Learn a lot.
This is the first time I'll listen to our podcast for the first time.
Good.
This is 496 episode.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been doing this
appreciate
all the
it.
time. See you, buddy.
Thanks, Jen.